The Winter Olympic Games are about to start in Milan and Cortina, Italy. And the question on everyone's mind is, will the weather cooperate? While the Summer Games can happen in rain or shine, skiing and snowboarding are impossible without a lot of snow, temperatures at or below freezing, and absolutely no rain. Getting all three in Cortina, where the outdoor events are, will take some luck, something that was hard to come by at recent Winter Games. In Turin in 2006, temperatures soared near 10 degrees. In Vancouver 2010, rain forced organizers to use a helicopter to replace melted snow. And Sochi 2014 was downright tropical.
Canadian gold medalist Dara Howell complained one of her runs felt like scuba diving.
Pyeongchang and Beijing barely had any natural snow. But while it may seem like the Winter Games are getting unlucky, the truth is the planet is just getting warmer. Burning fossil fuels is heating the Earth's atmosphere. The global average surface temperature will rise 1.5 degrees in 2032, then keep rising. Climate change is going to make it harder and harder to find places with the weather needed to host the Winter Games.
There's no question it's going to change the geography of where we can host the Winter Olympics. The only question is how much.
So while the weather at this year's Winter Games does matter, the much more important question is, how many more Winter Games will there be?
Cortina, as gripping as the ice belt that has hit Europe, has been the intense struggle for winter sport mastery at the Olympic Games.
The last Winter Games held in Cortina went great. Snow dumped on the mountain town, then temperatures plunged below freezing. The conditions were ideal, even if the skiing wasn't.
Captain of Britain's team broke a bone in her leg.
But winter in Cortina is different today. The surrounding Alps are seeing fewer days with snow cover, and they're averaging 34% less snow per year than a century ago. A month before this year's games, warm weather is posing a challenge. Winter sports are different too. In 1973, the women's ski jump world record was 73 meters. Today, it's 236 meters. The men went from 169 meters to 254 meters. Downhill skiers now race up to 160 kilometers per hour. And there are more sports, like snowboarding. To keep all these competitions safe and fair, the Olympics now require hosts to have a lot of snow. 30 centimeters for ski jumping, 1 meter for freestyle ski and snowboard.
So places are getting less snow while the Olympics require them to have more snow. Seems like a problem.
Last week I went onto our news site, newpress.com, to ask for viewers with experience at the Winter Games. I hope to hear from people who might have lived near or volunteered at the Winter Games. Then Jack replied that he'd actually be in them.
I am a British biathlete and I will be competing at the Winter Olympic Games in Antos in the next 2 weeks.
Biathlon is a thrilling combination of cross-country skiing and rifle shooting.
A race in biathlon is never done until the final shooting. People who will be coming into these final targets, if you're going for the win, you can panic and lose them all. There's so much suspense.
Jack competes in dozens of races every year and says that warming conditions are a top concern at every one.
I have like 35 pairs of skis with me because you'll have skis for wet snow, you'll have skis for stored snow, you'll have skis for fresh snow, snow which has just been made.
Thankfully, we have technology that can help. Snow guns take in water, compress it into tiny droplets, then spray them out. If the air is cold and dry, the droplets fall as man-made snow. Snow guns are also used to make snow to store for a whole year before an event.
Without snow guns, not a single winter event will go ahead. It just doesn't happen.
Man-made snow is often icier, smoother, and harder than the natural stuff. Alpine skiers actually prefer that. Biathlon skiers don't, but come prepared for it anyway.
If you can create a base in stored snow and then have fresh snow on top, that's the ideal situation. Even if the snow is of lesser quality, we will still go ahead.
Starting in the 1980s, the Olympics grew more reliant on man-made snow. In 2018, it used 90% man-made snow at the Games in South Korea, and more than 98% in Beijing. It took more than 49 million gallons of water, and led some to worry that it could lead to water scarcity.
While snowmaking machines are critical for winter sports, they aren't a silver bullet against climate change. That's because the air still needs to be cold enough to keep man-made snow from melting.
Vancouver was supposed to be a safe bet for the Winter Games. It had plenty of snow machines, but a warm spell rendered them useless. So if Vancouver can't reliably host the Winter Games, what city can? And for how much longer?
This video, per usual, took a lot of deep dives all over the internet. As you know, the internet can be a kind of shady place sometimes. A tool I genuinely have come to use every day is NordVPN, and they're the sponsor of this week's episode. A VPN is a handy tool that allows you to connect to the internet via a different country and protect your data along the way. That lets me keep up with shows I'm subscribed to back home. I also use a VPN to check for prices on goods in other countries, because especially these days, there's so much price variation from country to country. For Search Party, I use a VPN all the time to access articles and sites that are only available in other countries. And I use NordVPN because it's the fastest and it's the best at keeping my data secure. NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro protects me from ads, trackers, and malware, which is huge when you're clicking through dozens of sites from who knows where. And their dark web monitor can sound the alarm when it detects my information is in a data leak. Other tools like NordPass keep all my passwords secure and handy in one place. Now that may sound like a lot, but don't worry, it's all packaged into one handy product, NordVPN. And right now they're offering an exclusive plan at nordvpn.com/searchparty. Use the code searchparty to get a 2-year plan plus an extra 4 months. That deal's only available at that link. And don't worry, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it with no commitment. If you want to support Search Party, the best way to do it is to head to that link and try NordVPN for yourself. Thanks again to NordVPN for supporting us. Now I'll get you back to that story. The Olympics face an existential question. What cities can reliably host the Winter Games in a future with climate change?
Professor Daniel Scott has been working to figure that out for more than a decade.
So we said, look, hey, let's look at how the climate has changed historically where we've had the games, but also looking forward and what does climate change mean for the ability to host the games.
In a 2018 study, Scott and his team first took the locations that already hosted the Winter Games, plus 2 that were about to. Then they measured if each could maintain minimum daily temperatures around 0 and get at least 30 centimeters of snow with advanced snowmaking. Basically, the minimum to host the games. In 2018, they all could, which made them reliable hosts. Then Daniel applied climate change models to see which ones can in the future. In the first so-called low-emission scenario, we significantly cut down our use of fossil fuels. Average February temperatures rise an average of 1.9 degrees Celsius by 2050. Oslo, Sarajevo, Tahoe, and Vancouver become risky, while 4 cities become unreliable. Most are in low elevations near the coasts. But most cities can still reliably host the Winter Games. Fast forward to the 2080s, average temperatures rise an average of 2.7 degrees Celsius, making Innsbruck risky and Vancouver and Tahoe unreliable. The good news is that most cities can still host. The bad news is that this low-emission scenario isn't going to happen. It assumed countries would stick with the commitments they made at the Paris Climate Conference in 2015, and, well, they haven't.
We're unlikely to hit that. Scientists have been saying that for quite some time, and policymakers are reluctantly acknowledging that that's probably not going to a target we're not going to achieve.
So Daniel and his team ran a so-called high-emission scenario. In 2050, instead of temperatures up 1.9 degrees, they're up 2.1. Innsbruck gets risky, while Vancouver and Tahoe become unreliable. Then by 2080, instead of temperatures up 2.7 degrees, they're up a whopping 4.4 degrees. Lillehammer and Lake Placid get risky, while most cities are eliminated. It leaves only 8 cities that can reliably host the Winter Games.
I think going from just pass hosts, quickly you were down to about 8. That was pretty alarming for the Olympics.
So alarming that the International Olympic Committee asked Daniel to walk them through his results.
So they heard that. They said, thank you very much, asked a lot of great questions. And then 10 days later, they put a pause on the awarding of the next games. And then they came about a week after that and said, hey, can you look at these 93 locations for us?
Daniel's study looked only at cities that had already hosted. But the Olympics wanted to test other locations, near previous hosts, in new countries, and even in new hemispheres. Crucially, all places that already had most of the infrastructure needed. So in 2024, Daniel and Professor Robert Steiger ran the experiment again. They used the same standards as before, and included both low and high emission scenarios. But they also ran a medium emission scenario.
It's sort of your most plausible because it's based on what governments around the world have committed to doing. They still have to achieve that, but at least they've said this is what we intend to do.
In this medium emission scenario, 24 locations become risky and 6 become unreliable by 2030.
The IOC isn't allowing Daniel to share the exact names of these locations, but we can see from the map that the early casualties are typically at low elevations, like in Spain.
Fast forward to 2050 and we lose more locations, including 2 in Western Canada. 52, though, remain reliable. Then as we head into the 2080s, we lose 6 more.
But 46 locations remain reliable hosts, including plenty in the European Alps, hosting this year and in 2030, and what looks to be the Salt Lake City area, hosting after that.
Plus, novel locations remain reliable, like Eastern Turkey, Georgia, and Kazakhstan.
With a little help building infrastructure, these places could make a solid case to host in the future.
That was a positive finding, that you'll be able to host the games in the 3 major regions, North America, Europe, East Asia, going forward at least through this century.
And there's more good news. Even in the high emission scenario, there are plenty of reliable hosts in the 2080s.
This is one study that says with a little creativity, the games will go on. That's great news if you're like me and love the Winter Olympics, but it doesn't mean that climate change isn't going to complicate things.
These locations can meet the Olympic standards, but what if those aren't good enough? One study found that the Vancouver, Sochi, and Pyeongchang games had some of the highest injury rates ever, partially because of higher temperatures and lower quality snow. When Daniel's team surveyed athletes and coaches, most ranked hard-packed and frozen snow as the most important conditions. But raising the standard from 30 centimeters of snow to 50 reduces the number of reliable hosts from 30 to 27 in the high emission scenario. Still plenty of options, but it may mean using venues further into the mountains.
Not ideal, but that's part of the reality of providing fair and safe competition spaces. These are ultra competitive animals. They will go no matter what, that, they're, especially the Olympics. So they have to protect them from themselves. The biggest challenge, Sam, is actually the Paralympics.
The Paralympics are for winter athletes with physical, visual, or intellectual impairments. They're held in the same place, but 2 weeks after the Winter Games ends in March, when temperatures are warmer.
52 locations can reliably host the Winter Games in 2050 in the medium emission scenario, but only 21 can also host the Paralympic Games 2 weeks later. That's half.
By 2080, only 16 can host both games. One solution could be holding both games at the same time, but even cities like Vancouver and Denver would have trouble finding the space to pull that off. A better solution would be to move both games up a few weeks, something Daniel explored in a study published this month.
And it makes a huge difference for the Paralympics and almost no change for the Olympics. So climatically, that makes a ton of sense, just shifting a few weeks. We'll see, I guess, what their reaction to that is.
So while the heart-pounding ski races, impossible aerials, and nail-biting biathlon finishes will continue, the Olympics still need to think creatively to keep its competition fair and all its athletes safe. It's possible.
Even if you have to transform it a little bit to be able to cope with the climate change and the warming environment, at least we'll still be able to race, and there's still something to look forward to every 4 years.
That's the good news, at least until 2080.
Beyond that, it's a different question.
All right, thanks so much for watching our 40th episode. If you haven't subscribed yet to Search Party, now is your chance to. We cover sports and geopolitics. I'd also like to ask that you join newpress.com. That's a new platform started by myself, Johnny Harris, Christoph, and the whole New Press team. It's basically a new platform where we can talk to you guys and you guys can talk to us about stories. You can help us with stories. It's a whole new way of doing journalism. We have a few thousand people already in New Press, and I can tell you they've already helped a ton. We found Jack on New Press, and I've had a ton of help on my next story thanks to viewers. So go ahead and sign up for newpress.com. You'll get a video link from Johnny first to tell you a little bit more details. Other than that, we'll be back in a few weeks for our next episode, and I'll see you then.